All right, looks like we've had a number of people join here. Randy, do we have a quorum?
Yes, we do.
Okay. And I don't think we're recording yet. Are we streaming live?
Evan was on the call.
Okay. I see that we are recording. So we'll go ahead and call a regular meeting of the Wachusett Regional School District Committee number 1362 to order. The first item on the agenda, typically we're in public session. Do we have anyone signed up to speak during public hearing, Randy or Barry?
No.
Okay. So at this point, I would entertain a motion to enter into executive session to discuss potential litigation and to report on progress of contract negotiations as the chair deems discussions in public session would have an adverse effect on the district's bargaining position to return to public session.
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. And Randy, would you call the roll, please?
Member Ayala,
Ayala, yes.
Member Bennett,
Bennett, yes.
Member Gustafson,
Yes.
Member Haber,
Haver, yes.
Member Imber,
Member, yes.
Member Kirschenbaum,
Kirschenbaum, yes.
Member Knowlton,
Knowlton, yes.
Member Lavoy, Member Longbelial,
Yes.
Member Mills,
Mills, yes.
Member Mitchell, Member Otmar,
Otmar, yes.
Member Pantos,
Pantos, yes.
Member Shapiro, Member Silva,
Silva, yes.
Member Smith,
Smith, yes.
Member Sullivan,
Sullivan, yes.
Member Williamson,
Williamson, yes.
Member Woodland,
Woodland, yes.
Member Young, and Chair Dennis.
Dennis, yes. All right, so we will switch over to executive session to return to public session. Thanks, everyone.
Evening, gents.
Mike, I don't have the link. Can you send it along, please?
Sherry, I just sent it to you.
Thank you, Linda.
Do you have it out there? All right. Looks like people are rejoining. Randy, do you know if we have quorum here?
Yes, we do.
All right. It looks like we are now recording. Do we know if we're streaming live?
Yes, we are.
Perfect. All right. Thanks, everyone. Okay. We're back in regular session. If without objection, I'd like to take two motions out of order. The first is I would entertain a motion upon a recommendation of the Legal Affairs Subcommittee. The WRSD authorizes payment to Vanpool in the amount of $189,841.85 for the period of the second half of March 2020 through June 2020.
Was a big deal in the strategic plan. So I don't, nobody's.
I think somebody has their microphone non-muted.
So moved.
You're planning to make a motion?
Try, I should say.
I'd like to
Hearing
move to
no
postpone
motion?
the question.
Yes.
Well, if there's no motion to be made, we're going to move on to the next motion.
Mike, I'd like to
So
move to
seeing-
postpone the question,
No,
postpone the motion until our next meeting.
But the motion hasn't been made. I guess is what I'm saying is that there's no motion that we're moving on to the second motion. There's no
I thought
motion to
Bob
be
made-
made.
I thought
I'm
Member
sorry?
Ember made the motion. Member Ember, did you make that motion?
I did.
Has the motion been seconded?
I'll second.
Okay. The motion's been moved, been made, and has been seconded. Now we'll open for discussion. So I'll take hands in a discussion for the motion on Vanpool. Sherry.
Now I'd like to move to postpone the matter until our next meeting.
Okay. Motion's been made to postpone the matter until the next meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the postponement? Being none, Randy, if we can call the roll.
Member Ayala,
Ayala, yes.
Member Bennett,
Bennett, yes.
Member Gustafson,
Yes.
Member Haber,
Haber, yes.
Member Ember,
Ember, yes.
Member Kirschenbaum,
Kirschenbaum, yes.
Member Knowlton,
Knowlton, yes.
Member Lavoy,
Lavoy, yes.
Member Mills,
Mills, yes.
Member Otmar,
Otmar, yes.
Member Pantos,
Pantos, yes.
Member Shapiro,
Shapiro, yes.
Member Silva,
Silva, yes.
Member Smith,
All right, man. Go brush.
Member Sullivan,
Sullivan, yes.
Member Williamson,
Williamson, yes.
Member Woodland,
Woodland, yes.
Member Young,
Young, yes.
Chair Dennis.
I think you missed me.
Dennis, yes.
This is Linda Longbleal. I think you missed me, but I vote yes.
Thank you. The motion to postpone carries. Somebody sounds like they're in an echo chamber there. Without objection, the second motion that I'd like to take up, and then we'll go back up to the top, is entertain a motion upon the recommendation of Legal Affairs Subcommittee, the WRSDC authorizes payment to Field Turf USA, Inc. in the amount of $147,155.35 for completion of the turf field project at the Wachusett Regional High School.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, Randy, can we call the roll?
We can. And I'm sorry, I think I'm logged in twice. Hold on. Okay, Member Ayala,
Ayala, yes.
Member Bennett,
Bennett, yes.
Member Gustafson,
Yes.
Member Haber,
Haber, yes.
Member Kirschenbaum,
Kirschenbaum, yes.
Member Knowlton,
Wait. Don't I get to say? Imber, yes.
Member Lavoy,
Lavoy, yes.
Member Longbleal,
Longbleal, yes.
Member Mills,
Mills, yes.
Member Otmar,
Otmar, yes.
Member Pantos,
Santos, yes.
Member Shapiro,
Shapiro, yes.
Member Silva,
Silva, yes.
Member Smith, Member Sullivan,
Sullivan, yes.
Member Williamson,
Williamson, yes.
Member Woodland,
Woodland, yes.
Member Young,
Young, yes.
Chair Dennis.
Dennis, yes. Thank you. That motion passes. All right, we'll go back up to Chair's opening remarks, just a few for tonight. The first is that this is the last regular meeting of this school committee. I want to thank everyone who's soldiered on. It's been a long, wild ride, and appreciate everyone's hard work. Many many more meetings than usual, meetings that have gone longer, much more frequently, dealing with issues that we probably weren't anticipating. With our last regular meeting tonight, I want to recognize that there are several members who will be leaving us. They're not up for re-election. Members Melissa Aliella, Bob Ember, Ben Mitchell, Jeff Sullivan, and Adam Young. I want to extend my thanks to the work that you've done, not just this year, but for years in the past, and for Bob for, gosh, I don't know how long, many years. I really enjoyed working with you folks, and I wish you well in your newfound time, and thank you for your service. We have several members who are up for re-election. I want to wish the best of luck to Eric, Linda, Mike, and Asima, and hopefully we'll get to see you again at the after elections. I also want to extend a thanks to our student reps, Keith and Kenichi. You folks have been wonderful. I didn't know the kind of online presence and the impact that presence could have until I've seen you do it. And I think it was very meaningful and very positive. And, other members can certainly speak to it, but from my perspective, you added a great contribution. And, Kate, I think you're off to someplace. You'll have to fill us in. And Kenichi, perhaps we'll see you back with us next year. I mentioned that this is our last regular school committee meeting. We do have a special school committee meeting scheduled for tomorrow night. There's been some new information and some new communications that have come into the district that has caused the administration to ask for our committee to look at a revised budget. So in the interest of giving that its proper attention and communication to the public, we have a special meeting scheduled for tomorrow night. As with any matters related to the budget, in order for us to pass a revised budget, if it were the intent of the committee to do so, it would require 2/3 of the full school committee to do that. In addition, we do have a very full agenda tonight. We're just not coming out of executive session. However, if there are items that we're not able to reach tonight, it's the intention that we would wrap up this business that we have for tonight after our discussions on budget for tomorrow night. So again, thank you everyone for your flexibility and making yourselves available for these last couple of meetings before our committee changes. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Kate and Kenichi for the student representative report.
Okay, I'll go first. Student council met today for e-board elections. We had our candidates present their speeches, and the voting will close. Actually, it already closed 8 p.m. So good luck to all the candidates. The student council also made cards with candy bars for Teacher Appreciation Day, and sophomores and juniors finished their ELA MCAS that they took on Monday and Tuesday. From Thursday, their math MCAS will begin.
Yeah, just to follow that up, our student council also ran a spirit week after we returned from April break, and that included days such as Green and White Day, Color Wars, Future Career Day, and Denim Day. And so that was a really fun way to start off our return to full in-person learning. Full in-person learning has been great. I personally fully returned to in-person learning, and it's been fantastic. Lunch is a little weird, but besides that, it's been really great to see everybody. The one concern of administration and students is that there's a long line of people in the parent drop-off line or driving into school, and so we're just encouraging people to ride the bus if possible, just so that we can reduce some of the traffic that has been occurring. We also have events planned for seniors. So I know Principal Biendo was here at our last meeting. He talked about the senior social that would be occurring. So that's going to be a semi-formal, formal event held at Wachusett Mountain. Unfortunately, we weren't able to accommodate the entire senior class into one event. However, they've been able to split it into 2 events so that the senior class can still get together for that. And so there's no dancing, but there will be a lot of other fun activities to make up for that loss. And so our Science National Honor Society had their inductions as well this past week, and they were able to induct students that fulfilled requirements in science, including completing 2 year-long science project as part of our honors science program curriculum, and maintaining an 85 in those courses. The next thing is our elections for student council representatives or school committee representatives or class officers are all occurring right now, and so students are able to opt in to registering for those elections to be candidates until Friday of this week. So you're getting new student reps, and those are coming, and so there'll be any student interested in running for those are being elected as well. And then right now our AP language and composition students are finishing off their year with what's called the Save the World project, which focuses on using literature and language arts to create speeches about world issues and address them in real world application. So a few of those have started up new clubs, such as the Cancer Awareness Club and the Mental Health Club, and there are tons of other amazing projects from them going on across our district to help save the world and make the world a better place. And then our spring sports have started, and games kick off tomorrow afternoon. That's all I have.
Thank you, Kate and Kenichi. Any questions for our student reps? I have one. Where are you going to school?
I'm going to University of Wisconsin-Madison.
Well, congratulations. I'm sure you'll make a great Badger.
Thank you.
All right, and if there's no other questions or comments for our student reps, I'll entertain a motion to authorize a budget transfer of $1 million from the transportation appropriation to the transportation stabilization account.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Dan, do you want to give just a brief overview of the purpose?
Sure thing, Mike. This is the result of the savings in the homeschool bus contract, with the buses not running from September to the middle of January. And what we're looking to do is use these funds to reduce the assessments, the transportation assessments to the towns for FY22.
Thank you. Any questions or discussions before we move to a vote? Seeing none, Randy, can we call the roll?
Member Ayala?
Ayala, yes.
Member Bennett?
Bennett, yes.
Member Gustafson?
Yes.
Member Haber?
Haber, yes.
Member Imber?
Number yes.
Member Kirschenbaum?
Kirschenbaum, yes.
Member Knowlton?
Knowlton, yes.
Member Lavoy?
Lavoy, yes.
Member Longbeliel?
Longbeliel, yes.
Member Mills?
Mills, yes.
Member Mitchell? Not attending. Member Otmar?
Otmar, yes.
Member Pantos?
Santos, yes.
Member Shapiro?
Shapiro, yes.
Member Silva?
Silva, yes.
Member Smith?
Smith, yes.
Member Sullivan?
Sullivan, yes.
Member Williamson?
Williamson, yes.
Member Woodland?
Woodland, yes.
Member Young?
Young, yes.
Chair Dennis?
Dennis, yes. Motion carries. Thank you. Next, I entertain a motion to accept the annual evaluation of the superintendent of schools.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. So before I read the evaluation, just a couple of quick comments. First, again, want to pass along a thank you to the committee. We had 20 out of 21 members respond to the evaluation tool. It was the observation of the evaluation subcommittee that the comments were robust, and I think that that's the most helpful part in a lot of ways to the evaluation process. Also want to thank the subcommittee in its work in aggregating the evaluation across 21 members, not just the scores, but also going through and identifying themes within the narrative, characterizing that, and then synthesizing ultimately to the evaluation narrative that we have today. So what we'd like to do is I'll open with the memo that we have, and then each of the members of the subcommittee have agreed to take a reading of different standards so that we can break up the reading here, because this is just a little bit lengthy. So the memo begins, it's dated today, May 5th, 2021, to Darryl McCall, EDD, Superintendent of Schools, for Michael Dennis, Chair, Wachusett Regional School District Committee, regarding the Superintendent's composite of evaluation and narrative. This memo serves to summarize the ratings and comments provided by 20 of the 21 members of the Wachusett Regional School District Committee for your 2021 end-of-cycle summative evaluation report. The individual evaluations provide rich narrative and commentary upon the 4 standards assessed in the superintendent's rubric, as well as the overall summative assessment measured towards mutually determined goals and impact on student learning. I strongly encourage you to review and digest each individual evaluation report as well as the summarization. I'll turn it over to Linda Woodland for Standard 1.
For Standard 1, Instructional Leadership, Proficient 9, Needs Improvement 9, Unsatisfactory 1, Blank 1. For Standard 1A, Curriculum, Exemplary 2, proficient 8, needs improvement 8, unsatisfactory 1, blank 1. For standard 1B instruction, proficient 7, needs improvement 10, unsatisfactory 2, blank 1. Members noted an overall lack of evidence to support many of the indicators in this standard. Some members suggested inclusion of agendas of meetings, summaries of feedback, and/or summaries of curriculum for future evaluation narratives. Many also noted the difficulties of leading a school district during the COVID-19 pandemic, a novel situation, and the cause of a frequently changing landscape. The superintendent was commended on resource acquisition, investments in technology and software programs for instruction, technology support, and training to use these resources, especially in light of the challenges due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The superintendent provided quality professional development, as well as time for teachers to plan and prepare for the unusual year. The school reopening plan published in August 2020 established the guidelines for the new forms of instruction that educators in the district would need to implement for remote, hybrid, and full in-person. Though eventually achieved, members noted a delay in clear instructional guidance to teachers. Many members noted that the superintendent did not provide adequate evidence that he was involved in the implementation of well-structured lessons from the ESY Extended School Year Program and ABA Return to School to remote and high-flex instructional models. Members also referenced the low confidence of the community in the district's ability to communicate, plan, and implement an education plan, as well as the no confidence votes taken by the district teachers in the fall. Requests for information by members of the committee were late or unfulfilled. When plans were provided, they were noted for a lack of detail for instruction. A superintendent is urged to improve communication with teachers and other stakeholders. The superintendent was called to assess how resources and programs impact student learning so that data can be acted on in a timely manner to effect positive interventions for students as quickly as possible. Remaining largely unanswered was the question of which measures were to be used to monitor the quality of instruction in remote and hybrid models in order to accommodate unique learning styles and create consistency between schools. Members also noted that remote-only students seemed to be a lower priority once the district moved into hybrid learning. It appeared much of the instructional guidance happened at a building level rather than a district level. The superintendent was commended on bringing the special education students into the building earlier. However, not all highest need students were afforded that opportunity. Problems with the rollout of accessible ESY were noted, along with the question of if success was being measured by quality or the number of students. The superintendent increased the collaboration between building leaders as the year progressed, as shown in meeting with principals for diversity goals and other individual goals. Members advised the superintendent to include more evidence on how principals were supported in their work. Work samples, feedback on lessons, or other types of documentation that speaks to the use of programs were also suggested as evidence. Without adequate evidence, members questioned if the superintendent showed proficient instructional leadership, while others found his work to be proficient or even exemplary in the case of 1-A curriculum, considering the unique challenges of leading a school district through the COVID-19 pandemic.
Thank you. Next, I have Eric Knowlton for Standard 2.
Yeah, thanks. Standard 2 is management and operations. Exemplary 1, proficient 6, needs improvement 12, unsatisfactory 1. 2A was the environment. Exemplary 2, proficient 6, needs improvement 10, unsatisfactory 2. 2C, scheduling and management information systems. Proficient 8, needs improvement 10, unsatisfactory 1, blank 1. Several members explicitly stated their recognition of the challenges presented to the district due to COVID-19 this academic year. Members highlighted several COVID-related items throughout the standard. Members recognized the work that has been done with facilities and infrastructure, procurement, and upgrades to ventilation systems in particular. Members appreciated the attention to the health and safety of the staff, the collaboration with the local boards of health, and for orchestrating with the town of Rutland the vaccine clinic for all staff. Members called out concerns around the lack of and slow developing planning for hybrid and in-person learning models. Additional concerns were expressed around the amount and timeliness of related communication across all stakeholders. Many members thought it was a missed opportunity for the reopening task force to not meet throughout the fall and winter to continue planning and proactively provide related updates to the committee. Members referenced the September 2020 motion expressing no confidence, amended to concern, in the superintendent's management of the district's return to school plans. The consultant was hired to assist in the planning. Many members expressed frustration around the lack of output and infrequent updates based on her work. Members appreciated some aspects of the operational planning and technology system improvements, but were unclear if we were monitoring their implementation and efficacy. Lack of a proactive outreach and delayed or no response to information requests were cited on several occasions. Some members noted the lack of attention to the remote-only cohort once hybrid began. Some members also noted the repurposing of existing staff in order to address COVID-related administration responsibilities. Repurposing of the SEL director and deputy superintendent to carry out COVID-specific administrative tasks may have detracted from their core responsibilities at a time when they were greatly needed. Suggestions were made to seek out additional temporary staff to handle these responsibilities as an alternative. Some members called out the work of the SEL director as important and appreciated. However, more work is needed in the consistent handling of incidents regarding bullying and bias.
Thank you, Eric. Next, I have Matt Lavoie for Standard 3.
All right. Standard 3, family and community engagement. 1 exemplary, 6 proficient, 9 needs improvement, 3 unsatisfactory, and 1 blank. Standard 3B, sharing responsibility, 9 proficient, 9 needs improvement, 1 unsatisfactory, and 1 blank. Standard 3D, family concerns, 1 exemplary, 5 proficient, 11 needs improvement, 3 unsatisfactory. Members noted a lack of evidence to support the indicators in this standard. This included no evidence data on extended school year and lack of evidence related to Standard 3B and 3D in particular. Members noted lack of response to repetitive requests for information and data. Members noted a need for more overall communication and bi-directional communication. For example, it was noted that a special school committee meeting had to be called by members of the school committee to allow for community feedback. Members noted the improvement in the communication when the superintendent introduced weekly updates. However, content of the updates were remarked as being repetitive and one-way in nature. Members also noted the importance of surveys and using data to help drive decisions. Some members expressed concern regarding the use of survey data. Many members noted the lack of bidirectional communication, listening, and inconsistencies with responding to stakeholders. Some members expressed concern regarding communication with town select board members. Concern was also expressed over a reactive versus proactive approach to addressing concerns regarding the culture of schools for minority students. A need to listen to stakeholders was a consistent theme and is reflective in the ratings for Standard 3 and Standard 3D in particular. Members also noted concern regarding the misuse of the task force, lack of implementation of task force recommendations, and the perceived low prioritization of student needs in return to school plans.
Thank you, Matt. So I'll read the remaining Standard 4, progress towards goals, and the overall summative evaluation. Standard 4, professional culture. Exemplary 2, proficient 8, needs improvement 8, unsatisfactory 1, blank 1. Standard 4C, communications. Exemplary 4, proficient 6, needs improvement 8, unsatisfactory 1. Standard 4D, continuous learning. Exemplary 1, proficient 10, needs improvement 8, unsatisfactory 0, blank 1. Many Many of the comments under this standard focused on the superintendent's communication with various stakeholders. Many members noted an improvement in overall communication and responsiveness over the second half of the year. It was noted that the superintendent's presentation modifications to a slideshow format helped convey information to school committee more clearly. Members were encouraged to see the implementation of weekly newsletters and the use of surveys in town hall style meetings, particularly with the teachers. While considered steps in the right direction by many, several members remarked that the style of the town hall meetings conducted with parents, as well as the newsletters, were unidirectional and left many questions insufficiently addressed. Sections of the newsletters were repetitive of previous versions, which often watered down the timeliness of the content. It was also noted that surveys were often sent to parents without sufficient detail to make decisions, resulting in missed deadlines and frustration. Many members remarked that inquiries from school committee members, parents, and community members were often not addressed. Others expressed frustration on the inability to get clear answers from the superintendent and described members as needing to beg for more communication. For example, several committee members asked repeatedly across multiple meetings for metrics to be used in a decision-making process for reopening schools. Some members expressed optimism in general improvement related to discussions on diversity in the district through subcommittee, book studies, and potential training. Comments related to continuous learning pointed to the lack of evidence of data-based decisions. Some members remarked that while a book study, for example, is a positive step in the right direction, they have not been provided evidence of how this or any professional learning practice has impacted student outcomes. Some members have remarked upon the lack of vision to describe what student excellence looks like, learning goals that are necessary to support them, and how they will be assessed or measured. Members went on to indicate that this deficit is amongst the more important strategic issues facing the district. Members of the committee described the superintendent as professional, calm under pressure, and capable of conveying information to the school committee in a clear way. It was suggested that he surround himself with administrators that either fill educational leadership gaps, as discussed above, or who can address more operational tasks that may serve as a distraction. Next is progress towards goals. The first is student learning goal. Student learning goal is by June of 2021, the superintendent and his team will provide an outline identifying and prioritizing improvements to technology, resource acquisition, and newly discovered educational best practices that informs the vision of our next strategic plan. This goal is rated as 4, met, 6, significant progress, 9, some progress, 0, not met. Professional practice goal. By June of 2021, the superintendent, working with district and school leadership, will promote diversity, equity, and inclusion district-wide by defining and outlining sustainable practices needed to transform our culture. Met 1, significant progress 3, some progress 13, not met 2. District improvement goal 1. By June of 2021, the superintendent will establish and implement a system that enhances the communication between home and school for all families with school-aged children who reside within the district. Met 3, significant progress 7, some progress 8, not met 1. District improvement goal 2. By June 2021, the district will create a plan of action that proactively addresses student retention issues in the school district. Met 0, significant progress 2, some progress 8, not met 9. Members indicated that while progress was made with respect to each goal, and there has been noticeable progress recently, greater focus is needed in varying degrees. This is evident in the low number of met ratings across the goals. Several members acknowledged that great progress was made in the adaptation of technology, as it was a necessary component for remote learning. Nonetheless, members lauded the administration for flexible use and distribution of Chromebooks and adoption of other learning tools, and hope that best practices can be leveraged from this experience in the future. The committee wants to see more work in incorporating best practices into an overall technology plan that informs a strategic vision. Some members acknowledge that progress has been made with respect to communications and discussions on diversity. However, many members only indicated some progress and believe more work is needed in this area, including the development of a concrete plan with bold aspirations and which links action to impact on professional culture for staff and students. Members identified that significant progress has been made over the course of the year in the quantity of communication from the district to families, mostly by way of weekly newsletters. While members appreciated the use of surveys in concept, many of the surveys lack sufficient detail to serve their intended purpose. As mentioned across many of the standard narratives, members wish to see more effort in forms of two-way communication with multiple stakeholders. Most members expressed concern over the lack of progress on the development of a student retention plan. While it was noted that a survey was recently sent to determine which students might return to the district, several members indicated that this attempt alone falls short of developing an understanding of why students are leaving the district. Members encouraged the superintendent and the administration to pursue this question with great rigor to determine what steps or changes can be considered to minimize and reverse the trend of students and families leaving the school district. The last part is overall ratings. Overall summative rating, exemplary 1, proficient 5, needs improvement 11, unsatisfactory 2, and 1 blank. Impact on student learning, high 2, moderate 12, low 5, and 1 blank. We recognize and acknowledge the degree of difficulty posed to educational leaders as a result of the COVID-19 global pandemic. The logistical challenges are further complicated by the size and geographic expanse across our district towns, as well as the lean central office staff supporting the district. With those challenges in mind, the ability to think creatively, being proactive, not reactive, and strong leadership was acutely necessary. Much of the work that was done in the fall could have been done or planned in the summer and weeks before the start of school, as many other school districts did. Superintendent did not rise to the occasion in totality of these areas, but he did have some notable achievements. The lack of timely planning, communication, and articulation of a vision all contributed to an erosion of confidence amongst educators, families, and school committee members. The formation of a reopening task force was an example of a creative and collaborative idea that was under-leveraged and underutilized. The use of a weekly newsletter and surveys increased the quantity of communication, but were often under-informed, redundant, and did not fully serve its purpose. As stated on other standard narratives, investments in technology and infrastructure, upgrades to the school building ventilation systems, and planning for staff vaccination days were positive developments that contributed to remote learning and the safe return of students and staff. It is also notable and appreciated that special education students were prioritized in a return to in-person learning, as well as a plan to bring all students back by the end of April. The overall summative ratings, as well as the impact on student learning, represent low water marks for the superintendent. In addition to the handling of the district's COVID response, many members felt that the lack of evidence as articulated in the evaluation rubric was not communicated to the committee. This includes providing evidence of how the superintendent's actions or leadership influence educational outcomes. Members who have generally rated proficient or higher pointed to the superintendent's general demeanor of a skilled professional, an improvement in communication in March and April, and clearer planning which led to the return of full in-person learning for those who chose it. Overall, the rating of 1 exemplary, 5 proficient, 11 needs improvement, and 2 unsatisfactory marks the first time the average overall rating is not proficient for the superintendent. Further examination of past evaluation ratings where members rated the superintendent proficient or higher has trended down over the past 5 years, from 85% in 2017 to 80% in 2018 to 69% in 2019 to 58% last year to 32% this year. This steep downward trend in overall proficiency rating is cause for concern and underscores areas for improvement that remain unaddressed even prior to the pandemic, including fostering a means for timely, two-way communication, articulating a vision for academic excellence, and establishing and measuring indicators for success across the district. We encourage the superintendent to create an inflection point in this trend by reflecting upon the past year and generating and implementing lessons learned, by adopting a framework of data-based decision-making focused on driving specific and measurable student outcomes, by broadening his communication platform across all stakeholders so that they feel their perspectives are heard, by deepening a commitment to diversity and inclusivity planning, and by building upon the communication and planning efforts demonstrated in the past 2 months. The overall summative rating in this evaluation period is needs improvement. So with that, and the motion had being made to accept the evaluation, I'll open the floor for questions and comments. We have Adam.
Thanks. My comment's more comment on the process this year of doing the evaluation. I want to commend the subcommittee. This I felt was probably the best one I've seen yet in ease of use, clearly laid out, very easy to handle. The only issue I ran into doing the evaluation was looking at the specific goals and whether they were met, because all the goals listed are by June of 2021, and we were evaluating them 2 months early. So just as a process point, looking at next year, somehow align that maybe, or at least provide some sort of guidance in how to address that when you're doing the rating. If we're asking for it to be met by June, or we're going to evaluate it in April, give some pointers on how to do that. Other than that, I think it was it's the most involved one I've seen yet. I'm very pleased to see the number of people that participated, and I think it was really good. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you. I have Bob next.
So yeah, I share Adam's concerns. I also was off put by that. But as a larger issue, and I guess it's in my comments, looking forward, Daryl's very authentic, and I think there's a lot of good to be said about that. And but we need a staffing plan, and we still don't have one. And part of that staffing plan is we have to address a very, very lean, as alluded to in the report, central office staff. And wearing like a McKinsey hat or B school kind of hat in terms of analysis of a case, and what do we need to do to move forward as a good district? Number one, we're going to need to replace Bob in terms of curriculum. That's an absolute essential issue. Probably professional development, but the one area I think that the district is sorely lacking in, that's a real problem, is planning. And I think that is not a strong suit in terms of our particular superintendent, but it's remedied by somebody who has good skills that can bring folks together to facilitate and to come up with clear plans, with clear timelines, and that the administration and other folks, including faculty, have to buy into, and responsibilities in a lot of areas, whether they're homework plan, which we still don't have, or long-term plan for facilities, or whatever it may be. All of the things we need to address. We don't have a dashboard. It's crazy we still don't have that. But forcing folks to come to some sort of conclusions about what they ought to be recommending. And I don't know where the school committee is going in terms of its size. At this point, we need a large committee because we have viable subcommittees. But if we go to a scaled down version, again, it's even more and more prevalent that we have to have folks in a central office to do this planning and come up with clear timelines and responsibilities. And we need somebody who's got that talent that can help us sort of address these issues and nail things down. How well are our graduates doing when they move on? And if we don't deal with this stuff, we're going to continue to go around and around and around, and it's going to take us ages to get places, and I've been there. So I just really urge the committee, for me, the issue is, how do we move forward? And I'm not going to be here, but you guys need to grapple with this issue, and it really needs good quality facilitation and clear plans that are supportive of the goal isn't to be top down, but the goal is really to be bottom up and have central office buy into that, but be concrete and actually accomplish the goals. And that's been a major issue for all of my time on this committee. It's often taken 5, 6, 7 years to get something done that should have been in 2 or 3. So that's my 2 cents. Thanks.
Thank you, Bob. Mike Pantos?
I haven't voiced this before, but I'd like to just voice my concern for not having enough time to complete adequately the evaluation. I'd like to recommend that it be extended to 10 days rather than 7. I believe we only had 7 days. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it was actually 2 weeks, but any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll go to a roll call. Randy, can you call the roll?
Member Ayala?
Ayala, yes.
Member Bennett?
Bennett, yes.
Member Gustafson?
Yes.
Member Haber?
Haber, yes.
Member Imber?
Number yes.
Member Kirschenbaum?
Kirschenbaum, yes.
Member Knowlton?
Knowlton, yes.
Member Lavoy?
Lavoy, yes.
Member Longbeliel?
Longbeliel, yes.
Member Mills?
Mills, yes.
Member Otmar?
Otmar, yes.
Member Pantos?
Pantos, yes.
Member Shapiro?
Shapiro, yes.
Member Silva?
Silva, yes.
Member Smith?
Smith, yes.
Member Sullivan?
Sullivan, yes.
Member Williamson?
Williamson, yes.
Member Woodland?
Woodland, yes.
Member Young?
Young, yes.
Chair Dennis?
Dennis, yes. Next item on the agenda, it's in the form of a motion. I'll read it, but I'm not sure that it makes sense. So the motion is to determine school choice participation for the 2021-2022 school year. Rather than entertain a motion, because I'm not sure what the recommendation here would be, perhaps, Darrell, I'll turn this to you to give an overview on school choice, and perhaps you have a recommendation that you'd like to get the committee to entertain.
Sure. Thank you, Mike. So as you know, we've not participated in school choice for several years. We're down to about 60 students. And that was really the choice of this body several years ago, when we were in a situation where we had allowed school choice to occur over the years at the elementary level, at the middle school level. And then, typically what happens is those kids stay, because once you're in a school choice district, typically you stay in that district. You don't go to your home district for high school. So those students stayed through their high school years. And what we found was, as a community, as our 5 towns grew, and we had students from other towns attending our high school was overcrowded. And it was overcrowded to the point where we were having problems finding desks. We were having staffing problems. We were having just over-enrolled class sizes across the board. So there was a decision made not to continue with school choice. And that's now been going on for several years. With the current state of our numbers in reference to the overall pupil population, and really not knowing where we might be in September. I did share information with you in my report. Director Keenan also shared information in reference to some of the data that he had collected from families who had left and are most likely coming back. But at this stage of the game, because we do not know how many students we're actually going to be returning to Wachusett, it would not be something that I would recommend at this time that we participate in school choice for this next school year. The following school year, I think we could take a closer look at it. Again, one of our issues is that we have Holden that's growing at a rate that is much greater than the other communities, which does throw off the high school numbers. So even if we could say, yeah, you know what, we could add 5 or 6 kids over at Houghton Elementary in grade 1. Well, somewhere down the road, we're going to be looking at a larger increase. And I know our NESDEC numbers came out and those were shared with you. And at some time, yes, Malaya, we are going to talk about the NESDEC numbers a little bit. But one of the things that we need to do is just also look at those numbers. They're not always super accurate, but 9 times out of 10, if you look at a 10-year time span, they're pretty much right on. So again, what we'll have to do is take a look at that a little more closely, probably next year after we know what our October 1 numbers are like.
Thank you. I've got Ken.
I'd like to make a motion that the school committee recommend that the superintendent inform the DESE that Wachusett will not be participating in school choice for the 21-22 school year.
Second.
Can I just briefly speak to my motion?
Yep, go right ahead.
So I agree with what Daryl says. I would want to add one to that what I really want to know next year in this conversation is I want to have the conversation earlier. I want to know the financial impact of school choice in and out. And I would like to see a really deep dive on us not bringing in kids from the outside, but really figuring out why our kids are going out, not just where they're going or are you coming back or not, but really doing a deep dive analysis on that. And we did it a couple years ago, but we need to go back to it because it's a different ball game now. And let's get our own kids back before we bring in kids from other districts.
Thank you. I've Matt.
I'd reiterate that same point that Member Mills had just made. And it's my recollection when we looked at the analysis in the past, the opportunity cost, if those kids that are leaving the district stay in the district, it would take 2 school choice kids coming in to replace that one. So I'd like to see updated analysis of that, and furthermore, perhaps some actionable plans to identify individuals that might be thinking about leaving and what that means from a curriculum perspective, how we perhaps keep those kids in the district, because I think that's a bigger impact for us long term than considering school choice. So I'd appreciate that as we look at that for next year.
Thank you. I have Sherry next.
I'm agreeing with Ken and Matt, and also with needing more data. I had also requested further information from Director Keenan's report, asking for how we know which students are receiving these emails. They said 1,300 emails went out, but how many kids does that actually represent? I want to know if any of them actually said, no, they're definitely not coming back. That wasn't indicated in the charts. How many people on that list pre-COVID were homeschooled already that are not, we wouldn't assume they would come back. All that data seemed to be missing from that. And I do agree that we should not accept school choice this coming year, but I would like to still see all that information to know what to expect come September.
Thank you. I have Malaya next.
Some of my points have been made. I would definitely agree with the motion that we not accept school choice this year. I actually am concerned when I hear us thinking about accepting it even next year. We'll talk about that next year. But But I would strongly suggest having a conversation, at least about the data we already have sometime this summer, not waiting until October, because we have a lot of data in the predictions we just got. We have data you're collecting from the surveys you're doing. Hopefully there will be more information. I'm very curious to see the comments coming in from those surveys, if any. There's a really low response rate from what we've seen. So again, I don't know if that included students that were are definitely not coming back, and I'd be very interested in those comments in particular. But I think this is a conversation that we may want to start having even this summer and not waiting until October when we're into the rush of the year and all that comes with that. I think it's important to just have as an ongoing conversation in our district, because it is definitely a problem. I'm very concerned with the numbers. Obviously I'm in Holden, but I'm very concerned with those numbers and the impact, not just on the elementary schools, but the high schools. Because if I don't know if anyone else read them, but the data we got a couple of meetings ago in the report were very concerning. In the next 3 to 5 years, not 10 years down the road, the 3 to 5 year numbers were very concerning about where those kids are going to go to school and how that's going to fit in our already crowded buildings. So I think I'm hesitant to bring more students in, and I think we need to have discussions about this with the data we do have sooner rather than later. So thank you.
Thank you, Carl.
And again, thank you everyone for kind of already hitting some of the things I was at least thinking of as well. I think kind of two other pieces that I think would hopefully at least kind of help us to make a decision kind of when we're, again, I agree, kind of right now is not the time. Kind of going forward as well. The other piece of the puzzle with students who live in the 5 towns who aren't in our schools is the private school piece of it, really. And seeing what direction that seems to be moving, changes with the private schools, things increasing. So just seeing if there's changes in that. And then just the last thing for consideration, at least, and it's something that I go back to when we had all of the students that spoke to us, it was about a year ago now, that kind of prompted us to stand up the Diversity, Equity, and Anti-Racism Subcommittee, is that at least one of the students, one of their comments was that they thought it would be beneficial if there was more students who came from outside of our district. And so that was one argument that was made by a student last year in support of maybe doing some school choice. And so I think something that would be beneficial when we're having this conversation at some point in the next year would be maybe if we could get a recommendation from the Diversity, Equity, and Anti-Racism Subcommittee on what they think in regards to how, if opening up school choice would be beneficial in those regards or not. And it might not be the case, but that's just one thing that stuck with me from last year. I remember a student talking about that. And part of the puzzle, part of it is what factors into our decisions. Might not be the driving thing, but should at least be considered. But absolutely, right now, where things are, not the year to be, definitely not the year to be bringing in more.
Thank you. Any other thoughts or questions on the topic, on the motion? Seeing none, Randy, can you call roll?
Member Ayala?
Ayala, yes.
Member Bennett?
Bennett, yes.
Member Gustafson?
Yes.
Member Haber?
Haber, yes.
Member Ember?
Ember, yes.
Member Kirschenbaum?
Kirschenbaum, yes.
Member Knowlton?
Knowlton, yes.
Member Lavoy?
Lavoy, yes.
Member Longbeliel?
Longbeliel, yes.
Member Mills?
Mills, yes.
Member Otmar?
Otmar, yes.
Member Pantos?
Pantos, yes.
Member Silva?
Silva, yes.
Member Smith?
Smith, yes.
Member Sullivan?
Sullivan, yes.
Member Williamson?
Williamson, yes.
Member Woodland?
Woodland, yes.
Member Young?
Young, yes.
Chair Dennis?
Dennis, yes. Motion carries. Next, I'll entertain a motion to accept the donation from the estate of former WRHS teacher Douglas Ingalls.
So moved.
Second.
Daryl, do you want to give some overview to this one?
Sure. So Doug was a longtime teacher here at the high school in the English department, but was really the person behind that theater department, beloved, in the community, and did a lot of great things for kids. And this is, even though he passed away many years ago, these are some funds that he had set aside in his will that he wanted to share with students in the future. So again, it's a very generous gift, and we greatly appreciate his thoughtfulness.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, Randy, you can call the roll.
Member Ayala?
Ayala, yes.
Member Bennett?
Bennett, yes.
Member Gustafson?
Yes.
Member Haber?
Haber, yes.
Member Ember?
Ember, yes.
Member Kirschenbaum?
Kirschenbaum, yes.
Member Knowlton?
Holton, yes.
Member Lavoy?
Lavoy, yes.
Member Longbeliel?
Longbeliel, yes.
Member Mills?
Mills, yes.
Member Otmar?
Otmar, yes.
Member Pantos?
Pantos, yes.
Member Silva?
Silva, yes.
Member Smith?
Smith, yes.
Member Sullivan?
Sullivan, yes.
Member Williamson?
Williamson, yes.
Member Woodland?
Woodland, yes.
Member Young?
Young, yes.
Chair Dennis?
Dennis, yes. Motion carries. Next, I'll entertain a motion to approve Superintendent McCall's vacation carryover.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Daryl, you want to give a quick overview here?
Sure. Per policy, school committee has to approve any vacation time I ask to carry over from one year to the other. In this case, this year, I've not been able to use much of my vacation time. So you could approve up to 5 days moving forward into FY22, which is what I'm asking for.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll move to a roll call vote.
Member Ayala?
Ayala, yes.
Member Bennett?
Bennett, yes.
Member Gustafson?
Yes.
Member
Yes.
Haber?
Haber, yes.
Member Ember?
Ember, yes. And Daryl, have some fun.
Member Kirschenbaum?
Kirschenbaum, yes.
Member Knowlton?
Knowlton, yes.
Member Lavoy?
Lavoy, yes.
Member Longbeliel?
Longbeliel, yes.
Member Mills?
Mills, yes.
Member Otmar?
Otmar, yes.
Member Pantos?
Pantos, yes.
Member Silva?
Silva, yes.
Member Smith?
Smith, yes.
Member Sullivan?
Sullivan, yes.
Member Williamson?
Williamson, yes.
Member Woodland?
Woodland, yes.
Member Young?
Young, yes.
Chair Dennis?
Dennis, yes. Motion carries. Next item under the agenda, under the superintendent's report, is open meeting law determination. Daryl, I know you have this in your report. I don't know if you want to speak to it, and then I'll probably add on to that.
Yeah, so this goes back to a case that was brought up to the AG's office in reference to an open meeting law violation that was found to be validated, and the information was shared with us, I believe, last week, and we did want to share it with the full committee.
Thank you. I mean, yes, the determination was basically to find that there was, in fact, an open meeting law violation. And, you know, and everyone, I think, has had a chance to see the determination letter that's been sent from the Attorney General's office. This is a case of you know, one of our members reporting the violation with respect to another member. You know, this is one where while our response was basically to say, you know, this was of a de minimis nature, they did in fact find that under the technicality of the law, it was a violation. And the import of that is that if they continue to find open meeting law violations, it can be problematic for us as a public body. I'll just say that I'll try to be somewhat careful in my remarks. As a member of this board, this is kind of embarrassing to me personally, just as a member. My hope is that I think most of us are careful. I don't think that we have, we're trying to actively necessarily police one another, but I hope that the spirit of how we resolve issues is and can be, one-to-one and collaborative in nature. I think in the past year there's been 3 of these different things that have been issued, and I'd really hope for the day where that number is 0, because I think it should be. But that's all that I have to say about it. I'll open the floor for any comments or questions if anyone has any. Laura?
Thank you. I think one positive outcome from this experience was to ensure that when an email is sent out by the administration, that all the members are blind CC'd rather than sent out so that a reply all is not so easy to misstep with. So I think that was just a reminder to us all from the administration to get blind CC emails.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, next item under the agenda is reopening Wachusett Regional High School. We'll turn it back to Daryl.
Sure. So first of all, Kate, thank you. Did a nice job kind of summarizing some of the things I was going to talk about, but we have had 1,400 students come back to the high school. They started last Monday. I did have the opportunity to go through the building with Principal Biendo and sit through several lunches. And I did talk about that in my report. Kate, you're exactly right. Lunch is really strange. I think that's probably one of the, the stranger things, because again, you're in class, so you still have kids in class. You're still with kids right next to you, in front of you. You have the teacher in front of you, so it feels more normal. The cafeteria, the 2 small gyms, and the actual field house where you have the sophomores and the juniors, the juniors and the seniors. It is a little strange because kids are eating on the bleachers. You have kids down on the floor. But I think it's working well. I think kids are relaxed. I think they're really happy to be back in school. That is the one thing that I'm hearing from teachers and from administration and from kids. I do, again, want to emphasize that teachers are really spending time and energy on making sure that they're hitting the kids who are still remote. So that's still part of the process, and they're integrating them. And that's not just the high school. Again, that's happening at the K-8 level as well. But I think for the most part, it's almost business as usual, and I think everyone's just very happy to be back.
You're on mute, Mike.
Thank you. I was just going to say, Matt, you have a point of order or a point of information?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'd like to go back to the last item on the agenda, because I don't think we followed the letter as given to us by the Attorney General's office. And I just want to make sure that we do.
You go right ahead.
Yeah, so in this letter, it says that the committee may publicly release the email by reading its contents during a meeting and listing the email in the meeting minutes, or by referencing the email during the meeting and posting the email along with the minutes on the committee's website. So I think we just need to be clear to the public that that information will be published.
Yeah, no, I think that's the intention. So we will reference that email in the meeting minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on the reopening for the Wachusett Regional High School?
I have a question. Are we going to talk at all about the reopening at the other grades? I have a comment or question about that. The lower grades.
It's the high school reopening right now. Chair Dennis, it's really up to you.
Go ahead, all out. Go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to say I think the reopening in general has gone exceedingly well. And Daryl, thank you for that. I'm very appreciative of all the hard work that you and everyone have put into that. I have heard one concern recently on Facebook about snacks. I think this must be at the elementary schools, that the kids are not able to have snacks, and that some kids are having to wait till like 1:30 in the afternoon to eat. And so I would just urge you to try to address that. Some of the Facebook comments I've seen have made suggestions about how that's being done at other schools. So it seems like something we could resolve, but so.
And thank you, Linda. Another member did actually mention that to me earlier this week, and I did address it directly with building principals.
Thank you. Great. And I do think things have been going very well. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll move to summer services, extended school year. Back to Daryl.
Sure. Thank you, Mike. So again, summer services and extended school year, they're really two different things. The summer remedial program that we're putting together will be looking at students. And again, I think this is something we talked about several months ago when we were bringing kids back in, but students in our cohort D, students who were not making a lot of progress, who were having some challenging times. One of the things we're doing is we're looking at those students as possible students who would be able to get some summer support, during the month of July. So we would basically be running the program the 4 weeks of July. Again, one thing, there's a lot of back and forth right now in the education world about summer programs, especially right now. And it's primarily because the concern of kids burnout, as well as staff burnout. Kids and staff have spent an awful lot of time in front of computers and so forth, but we still want to be able to take the opportunity to put forth a solid program. Governor Baker last week actually mentioned that he's putting out about $70 million worth of grants, and it's coming out of the state ESSER funds, not the district ESSER funds. So we'll have the opportunity to actually apply for some of those grants to bolster some of our programming as well during the summer. We're trying to look to have it in one location. Ultimately that'll make it a little easier for us around transportation. We do want to be able to provide transportation. And one of the items, again, and I have mentioned this, the ESSER 3 grant that's still not defined yet. States are still waiting for that to be defined at the federal level so that the state can define it for locals. We do know that 20% of that allocation that will be put forth to the district needs to be spent on some type of remedial support program, i.e. summer program, after school program. So we're really looking wholesale at bolstering some time with kids in the summer, K-8, into the high school. We had the opportunity to meet with high school administration and the counseling department last week to talk about how it might work up at the high school. So we'll probably, again, have the full rollout of this within the next 2 weeks.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on summer? So we've got a few coming in here. And it looks like Linda Long-Balil.
I'm curious as to how this dovetails with the Acceleration Academy that the governor is talking about, and can we have a similarly kind of positive name for what we're doing?
Yeah, so we're actually talking about using the terminology Impact Academy. So there is an Acceleration Academy that will occur at the tail end of August. that the governor is still defining a little bit more, and that information will come directly from DESE. I've not had a meeting. The commissioner has not had a meeting this week, so I think they're still waiting for at the state to really define how money is going to be allocated and how the grants are going to be distributed.
Thank you.
Carl?
So question, there, at least it kind of builds off of this. So what is our district's policy on retention and promotion from grade level? So like specifically in the context of, say, like parent of a first grader is like, this has been the absolute worst year in the history of history. I got that there's stuff in the summer to help them get ready for second grade. I just want to keep them back, have them repeat first grade, because I don't want to pack them stuff over the summer. I think that's what's best for them. But like I don't recall seeing any of our, and maybe I just wasn't looking in the right place, but like what is our policy for parents? Because I know that broadly the state and even across the US are kind of highly discouraging social retention. I don't know the term, but basically they're discouraging holding students back based on how the year went. But certainly I would think that at some point, some parents may want to make the decision that they think it's in their children's best interest to have them repeat whatever grade they were in. And so I'm trying to find out what is our district's policy, or like how would parents go about that?
So first, that's a great question, Carl. First and foremost, you're exactly right. Nationally and at the state and local level, at the state level, everyone is discouraging retaining students this school year, primarily because I think when they're looking at this was a tough year for a lot of kids, and that's one of the issues. So if push came to shove and they actually said, okay, here are the metrics that we have set up, and you need to stay back if you don't reach this particular point, which I know some places actually do have in the country, they're going to have a lot of students be retained. 10, 15, maybe 20% of their population. So that's not something that they're going to do. Each case is individual, Carl. So it really comes down to the team that's working with the student and the family. It's not something that we necessarily promote. So if we have someone that says, hey, I'd like to talk to you about my student because I'm really concerned about what's going on with them socially, emotionally, academically, those type of things, that starts, this conversation happens in school with the teacher or the teachers or the team. It then moves into the administrative side of it at the building level. And then a decision can be made there. There is conversation with us at central office about that, whether or not there would be a student that is retained. We do have a couple of students that stay back, not stay back, but are retained, annually. And it's typically when a parent and a team will agree that it would be in the student's best interest to have another year in that grade level.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Malaya.
Okay. So my question was just about the staffing situation. I've heard, I think you're talking a little bit more about the summer services than ESY right now, because obviously Christine isn't here and that's more prescribed. But in both cases, I have heard concerns about the staffing, and I've heard that's a statewide issue and probably a national issue. But I'm curious, since it is a realistic concern, what we are trying to do to address that, because I know the extra summer program is completely extra, but the ESY is required by law. And how do we plan to make sure that those students are addressing that, because that's a legal concern, that they're taught by certain teachers with certain skill sets, and not just kind of like a it does, I don't know. There's more flexibility with the summer services than ESY. So I'm just curious in both of them what we're working on locally to try to solve that issue, I guess.
Sure. So I did actually survey staff, 2 weeks ago, perhaps, all teachers, paraprofessionals, as to whether or not they would be interested in working in one of the summer programs, the Acceleration Academy, the Impact Academy, extended school year. And we'd probably, I think out of 500 possible teachers. I think we were in the 40 to 50 range for people who were interested. Malaya, you're right. We do have some specialized programs that happen in the summer where we will have staff that need to have specific licensure. But again, if we don't have it in district, we don't have the staff in district. We put it out there for staff outside of the district or for teachers outside of the district, which is, we've done that in the past as well. And if push comes to shove, for ESY in particular, for special education, we use contracted services.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other? Malia, you have a point of order?
I do. I just noticed the time. Can I make a motion to extend the meeting until 10:30?
Second.
All right. Motion's been made to extend to 10:30. Randy, would you call the roll?
Member Ayala?
Ayala, yes.
Member Bennett?
Bennett, yes.
Member Gustafson?
Yes.
Member Haber?
Yes.
Member Ember?
Member, yes.
Member Kirschenbaum?
Kirschenbaum, yes.
Member Knowlton?
Knowlton, yes.
Member Lavoy?
Lavoy, yes.
Member Longbeliel?
Longbeliel, yes.
Member Mills?
Mills, no.
Member Otmar?
Otmar, yes.
Member Pantos?
Pantos, no.
Member Silva?
Silva, no.
Member Smith?
Smith, yes.
Member Sullivan?
Sullivan, no.
Member Williamson?
Williamson, yes.
Member Woodland?
Woodland, yes.
Member Young?
Young, yes.
And Chair Dennis.
Dennis, yes. All right. Any other discussion under ESY or summer programming? I guess the one thing that I'll say is that, Daryl, I heard you mention that in 2 weeks, we'll have, I think, a baked out plan. And I think it's important that we bring that plan to our next school committee meeting, which will probably be in that 2 to 3 week time frame, but that we understand, again, how the mapping of this program relates to addressing, learning loss, addressing, particularly for early literacy, and how the funding mechanisms are tying into that. What is the cost? Where is the funding coming from? What do we need to do, even tactically, with regard to applying, I think is the term that I heard you use, for some of the ESSER funds that will be made available through the state. So we'll look to make sure that that's a clear item for us on our next agenda.
Yep, I agree.
Okay. All right, moving on. There's no items of unfinished business. Under the Secretary's report, what I'm going to do here is refer to the meeting agenda and try to take many of these things somewhat quickly. So what I'll do is, without objection, I'll accept the meeting minutes listed under A on our anonymous consent. Hearing no objections, those meeting minutes are accepted. Moving on.
I think someone just raised their hand.
Oh,
I just want to abstain.
Okay. With the exception of Bob's abstention, are there any objections to? Seeing none, we'll accept the minutes under anonymous consent. Item B, without objection, we'll accept those meeting minutes under anonymous consent.
Again, I'd like to abstain.
With the exception of Bob's abstention. Any objections? Seeing none, well, meeting minutes are accepted. Item C, without objection, we'll accept those meeting minutes under anonymous consent.
I'd like to abstain.
With the exception of Bob's extension, are there any objections? Seeing none, well, meeting minutes are accepted. Without objection, I'd like to accept the meeting minutes under D, under anonymous consent.
I'd like to abstain.
With the exception of Bob's extension, are there any objections? Seeing none, those meeting minutes are accepted. Item E, without objection, I'd like to accept those meeting minutes under anonymous consent.
I'd like to abstain.
With the exception of Bob's extension, are there any objections? Seeing none, those meeting minutes are accepted. Item F, without objection, I'd like to accept those meeting minutes under anonymous consent.
I'd like to abstain.
With the exception of Bob's extension, are there any objections? Seeing none, those minutes are accepted. Item G, without objection, I'd like to accept those meeting minutes under anonymous consent.
I'd like to abstain.
With the exception of Bob's extension, are there any objections? Seeing none, those meeting minutes are accepted. G, item H. Without objection, I'd like to accept those meeting minutes under anonymous consent.
I'd like to abstain.
With the exception of Bob's extension, are there any objections? Seeing none, those meeting minutes are accepted. Item I. Without objection, I'd like to accept those meeting minutes under anonymous consent.
I'd like to abstain.
With the exception of Bob's extension, are there any objections? Seeing none, those meeting minutes are accepted. We will skip item J and we'll go to item K. Without objection, I'd like to accept those meeting minutes under anonymous consent.
I'd like to abstain.
Besides Bob's abstention, are there any objections? Seeing none, those meeting minutes are accepted, and we will skip over item L. Thank you for that. Next item on the agenda is Treasurer's Report, financial statements. That information was included in our packets. We'll move on to the committee reports. Under Management Subcommittee, Management Subcommittee has not met recently. We probably will not meet before the new meeting, committee takes place. Education Subcommittee.
Okay, good evening, everyone. We met on Monday, April 26th, and we reviewed policy 3231 about inclement weather, and we revised the policy and we'll bring it to a future meeting. We also reviewed policy 3360, independent learning, and policy 3611.4 on enrichment. And after reviewing both of these policies, we'll be bringing the committee a new policy to take a look at and to see what your thoughts are, both on the two policies at a future meeting. So that is our report, and we will not obviously be meeting until after the reorganization.
Thank you. Next is Business Finance. Ken?
Would you mind if we just defer this till tomorrow night? Because pretty much it deals with what we're talking about tomorrow night. It might be more timely to talk about it then.
Makes sense. Legal Affairs, Kelly?
I don't have anything at this time.
Okay. Superintendent Goals and Evaluation, Matt, anything more to add?
Nothing to add outside of thank you everyone for the participation in the evaluation. My hope is that we begin the process immediately in terms of identifying goals for the upcoming year. So I think that that's something that we started later on in the year. So it could be up to this committee to decide whether they want that to commence before the reorg or wait until the reorg to have the next meeting of the evaluation subcommittee.
Thank you for that. Without objection, we have a lot to unpack with facilities and subcommittees, but I'm inclined to just take the others two or so first. So without objection, I'll go to Diversity and Equity and Anti-Racism Subcommittee. Asma?
Yes, we met last night, but I was there very shortly. So if Linda, member Linda is Woodland is there, I'd like her to give the update.
No problem. We continued a long
long work through policy revision, and so we looked at the existing harassment policy number 6437. We looked at the adoption of a policy of non-discrimination on the basis of disability and the adoption of a policy on gender identity support. All three of these we've asked to have legal review and hope to bring to a future committee for readings. And then we also had an update from the superintendent on some of the work the administration's been doing. I think that sums it up.
Okay, thank you. Audit Advisory Board, Ben's not here. Adam, is there anything to discuss?
Nope, nothing that I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you. Ad hoc committee to review the regional agreement. Ken.
So we discussed this as a full committee right on the 26th, and then we had a subcommittee meeting on the 28th. We received feedback from 4 of the 5 towns. We're still waiting from input from Sterling. So we asked hopefully representatives from Sterling could reach out to their officials in town to see if they can give us some feedback or just tell us if they don't have any. The members from Paxton and Rutland, representatives of their government, were at our subcommittee meeting. During that, we reviewed the input from the towns, which was diverse, rich, and in some cases contradictory in between the towns. And in discussion amongst the subcommittee, as well as with the Paxton and Rutland representatives of their government, the path forward we suggest is that the vice chair and I, in consultation with the superintendent, are planning to send a letter out to the towns, through Chair Dennis, if he so agrees, to summarize what we heard and ask for their feedback so they can respond to each of the town's suggestions. Also ask for the superintendent to do that on behalf of administration and ask to come back to this full committee with that letter to get feedback from the committee to see where we are. We'd probably want to give the towns, by their request, 6 to 8 weeks to be able to have scheduled meetings of the board to select persons, gather their feedback, consider it, and get back to us. So we're looking late summer at that point. Then we suggested having a roundtable with 2 representatives from each town and administration and school committee to get together and hash some of these issues out in person, so that ideally we could make a recommendation to this body for any potential changes ahead of any special fall town meetings that might be regularly scheduled. At least Rutland traditionally does one. Paxton sometimes does one. If we're going to make changes, we want to hit as many meetings without asking towns to call for one, because they do cost money. That's if there are any recommendations that emerge from that process. So the process will be extended. That seems appropriate because the issues they brought up were complex, and as I said, in some cases not on the same page. So this is the process that the subcommittee wished to do going forwards. Of course, it'll be up to the chair and then the future chair to decide, how this ad hoc committee continues its work.
Any questions on the regional agreement? Mike Pentas?
I was just wondering if Member Mills could give an example of something that's contradictory from the towns.
Sure, I can give a few examples of that, and I don't want to put words into the town's mouths. This is, my interpretation. There seemed like in general that the towns wished the committee to be smaller, but how they would go about doing that was very diverse in terms of whether there should be weighted voting or how many members should be from each town. There seemed to be only one town requested vocational transportation to be folded into our budget. So we definitely want to see if other towns had an opinion about that, because that would be a cost sharing that's not currently being done. There seemed to be difference in opinion behind the suggestions with regards to leaving the district. One town wanted to eliminate a waiting period for reapplying. One wanted to make it longer, which to me strikes me as that there's a fundamental disagreement behind that about whether we should make it easier or harder town to leave the district. They were generally in common with wanting more budget transparency and and such. But the means for that, I wouldn't say would be a conflict, but just they were asking for different things. So I think we have to pull apart what's in a lease agreement, what's in a regional agreement, and what's just good practice, right? So I would say the first things I mentioned is where I sense there's some fundamental, probably town size related differences of opinion behind some of those issues that to some degree it's working out with us, but some degree it's also working out between them. So that's why the subcommittee was proposing getting the town's feedback from each other's input and then bringing everybody together. So it's not just us sending something out because one town was louder and then it going down at the votes because we didn't hear all towns together.
Thank you for the summary. I appreciate it.
I got Matt next.
One thing that we might want to also consider as we go down assessing potential changes, there are pieces, for instance, our bylaws on the school committee are written really based upon the size of our membership today. So I would anticipate that should there be any changes proposed, we have to think about what that impact would be, perhaps on other subcommittees, on this committee, to be able to look at all of the trickle-down effects as well. So I just want to make sure that we have our eyes on that so we're not caught behind the 8 ball, so to speak, if a change was instituted.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on the regional agreement? Seeing none, we'll go back up to Facilities and Security Subcommittee, and Adam, I'll turn it to you.
I'll do my best to get through all of this before 10:30. If I don't get all of it, I'll be happy to pick the rest of it up tomorrow. So Facilities and Security Subcommittee met on April 21st. As you can see, we had a very full agenda. We reviewed the 10-year capital plan. We received updates on reopening, logistics in the high school, and the plans for administering MCAS this year. We received updates on the ESSER 2 grant, COVID prevention state grant, and the FY21 efficiency and regionalization grant application. And we also brought forth multiple policy changes, as you can see. So starting at the top of the list, I'd like to make a motion to approve the 10-year capital plan as presented in the email containing the superintendent's report.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Adam, do you want to give some discussion on it?
Sure. So after reviewing this plan for 2 meetings, the subcommittee unanimously voted to bring forward the plan to the full committee. We did make some changes, or quite a few changes in some cases, in bringing forward some very high priority items such as sprinkler systems. We also suggested adding several items that were below the town responsibility threshold. Also be included in the plan just to demonstrate items that the district saw as important and we're taking on ourselves. And I'll open it up to questions if anybody has any.
Ken?
Said an observation and then a request. One observation, I know the ship has sailed for next year's budget, but the high school track being put off another year and it's like disintegrating up there. We want to make sure we don't push that any farther back. But I just request maybe the administration, I don't want to step on the toes of facility and securities, but with the high school and the ECC things, I hope that you could actually bring us a business and finance in too, just so we can get at how y'all going to pay for this part of the plan and see what how that fits into budget forecasting going forward.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree.
Dara, I'm not sure if you want to respond to that or not.
Yeah, that's definitely something that as we kind of move forward with, again, I think one of the things, Ken, when we're talking about the ECC and in the high school, larger items that we would have to go back out to the towns for, we probably wouldn't incorporate it into the budget. We'd probably go back out to them and look at how we could possibly support a new roof or replacing HVAC systems throughout the buildings and so forth.
But I think it'd be a good conversation to have at business and finance, because you could imagine alternative pathways of saving money in E&D towards those things.
I agree. Yes.
As opposed to having, it's something, a discussion we should have in the future.
And again, I think you're exactly right. And I think at some time it might be something where having the opportunity for the conversation between the two groups would be helpful.
So just add in there.
Okay, Leah.
So that was essentially. Sorry, did Adam have something?
I just wanted to respond back to Ken as well.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's fine. We definitely discussed it in the meeting that this 10-year capital plan, while we worked with the business office to come up with it, it absolutely impacts business and finance, and it can't be implemented without business and finance. And once it's to here, we may approve it, but it still needs to go to that's the committee. So thanks. Go ahead, Leah. I'm sorry.
Well, that was my comment, question, procedural thing, hesitancy, I guess. I appreciate all the work that went into it and what is there, but I am on the Business and Finance Committee, and I would have liked the opportunity to discuss some of the budgetary impacts and planning before we were asked to vote on this, because that's the role of business and finance. So I agree. I don't disagree with anything in the plan itself, but I'm a bit conflicted because there are some very large numbers in there, and I would like to know if we are approving it, what we are committing ourselves to. I assume implementing it on this schedule, and make sure that we have had those discussions about some of the budgetary options. So that is my concern. I'm not opposed to anything that's in the plan, but I am concerned that business and finance hasn't had an opportunity to really think through it and talk through it, whether with or in addition to. So that is, I guess, my thought.
So can I
Linda Woodland? Yeah, go ahead, Adam.
Adam, if you want to, I was going to speak to the same thing to hopefully clear up, but if you want to take a shot first, go for it.
So, feel free to follow me up, because I'll probably miss something. But, this was definitely something we discussed during this whole process. And, this plan is intended, a lot of it is for us to provide the towns so that they can get that kickstart on planning for all those out-year expenses that we foresee. And again, these numbers are estimates. And the intention is that basically, as we move forward, this capital plan is a living document. It's not a set in stone document. If another subcommittee wants to take it up and amend it and do that, absolutely. This is a plan document, not necessarily the implementation document. This is what we foresee as issues coming up, and something could happen next month and it affects everything next year, and like everything that is in this plan we're just not going to be able to do next year. That's basically what the intention of this plan is to provide that planning so that business and finance can start having those discussions, so that the town can start having those discussions on how to attack these issues that we foresee. So hopefully that makes sense. And Linda, feel free to jump on there as well.
Yeah, so that's about what I was going to say. Also, that in part of our discussion at the April 21st meeting, we also talked about the source of how things might get paid for, how firm these numbers are, how firm of a plan it is, or is it a guideline? And also about bringing in business and finance into this, that it would need to be a collaboration in terms of just making sure that everybody's on the same page. Some of the items that are earlier on also, we asked about, well, how is this getting paid for now? Or not now, but in that time on the plan. And, there are some of the grants that have come through because of COVID that, there's a timeline on those, as you know. So some of that factored in. We also looked at the future combination of years of items to kind of get an idea of how to work with the towns in advance, so it's not a surprise. But I would imagine that would also need to be worked with hand in hand with business and finance. There's some parts where we're expecting funding to be higher or lower depending on the year, depending on how different grants pan out. And so that was part of our deliberations on this, with the added end of, and business and finance should have their eyes on this as well. So I don't know if that helps clarify at all.
Thank you, Linda. I have Mike Pantos next.
I'd just like to speak briefly to this, if I could, as a member of the subcommittee. We did review this quite extensively. It did take up 2/3 of both meetings. We made adjustments where deemed necessary to move some of the items that concern safety to sooner rather than later. And I think we did quite well with it. It was my impression that we would bring it forward to the committee tonight. If for some reason the committee were to decide that we did need to bring it also to business and finance, then that would be the choice of the committee. However, we decided the best step forward would be to bring it to the full committee this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob next.
First and foremost, I support the plan, and I think that the idea behind a plan is that you have to put it forth to the communities. This is what we need. And it's the same thing with a staffing plan, where we've had many classes that have had, we don't have enough teachers, we don't have enough advanced placement courses. There are a lot of other things we need to do in sort of central office. We have to put forth a plan. And we have to go to the communities and we have to say, this is our need. And sometimes we don't know that we have the funding, but you can't ask for the funding until you have the plan. So I support the plan, and I think there are times where you have to move forward with a plan that says this is where we want to go. If we don't achieve it, that's okay, but that's on the communities. They have to sort of say, we have not stepped up to the plate, we have not met the needs, and we have to say, this is what we need. And facilities is part of that, staffing is part of that, and there are a lot of other things that are part of that. And that's our obligation as a school committee. So I think we have to have a plan. The plan has to be 5 years or 7 years or 10 years. This is 10 years. And then we go and we say, this is what we need as a school committee. We've analyzed it, and to not do this is not okay. So I support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Carl?
Yeah, I mean, great job on, from a guy who loves spreadsheets and loves talking about maintenance and stuff like that, among other things. But I mean, you got to put a lot of work into this, and there's, like I said, a lot of really good detail in there. And so that's, again, kudos to you folks on that. And certainly, as was mentioned, really, you can put out a 10-year plan, you revisit it in 5 years, and you make another 10-year plan. And so you're not doing it once every 10. They call it a 10-year plan, but you're really doing it every 5 years, and it kind of gives some flexibility in that. Question I had, and it just may have been beyond the amount of push the amount of wheels you guys had into it, but I was looking at the prioritization column that was in your spreadsheet, and I was just curious, like if you guys were even able to get to kind of making your 1 to N list, or having a 1 to N list like across the district. So you'd say like, oh, for next year, so the year we're getting ready to start, replacing the tractor at the high school with replacing the new phone and intercom system at the middle school. They're both are listed as priority 1, but which, and if you didn't have the energy to get there, I mean, it's a big spreadsheet. It takes a lot of work to get through, but I didn't know if you were, or if it was something you guys had talked about and it just didn't make it in here.
Adam, I can answer that for the group. That was coming from us at central office, and that was just a start, Carl. That didn't mean to be an ending point, and in reality, I probably should have pulled those out before it got shared to you guys, but that was the beginning of an internal discussion. So.
All right, I got Linda Woodland.
So I just wanted to add that there's, in terms of putting this forward to the full committee at this point, I think part of our discussion was also the timeliness that's involved to make sure that we can really collaborate with our towns. That's something that has been called for repeatedly, that we have increased collaboration with upcoming expenses. And so at least having this, it's not set in stone, but it gives a really good outlook of what is going to fail within the buildings and approximately when that's going to be. And so I think that in this method, in that light, I would urge caution in letting the perfect be the enemy of the good. This kind of thing can't be mapped out exactly. I think that it's a good starting point for making sure that we can collaborate, and the collaboration with the full committee and with the towns. So I just wanted to put that out as well.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you. I want to thank the subcommittee for putting this report together, and for the district administration trying to look at prioritizing needs and so forth. I think clear communication with the towns is essential. My question is around the cost estimates for these projects, being a 10-year plan. Are these projected out estimates, or are these as numbers currently in terms of what it might cost in today's value versus 10 years from now?
I can answer that question, Laura. Dan and I worked on the numbers there. We looked for the ones that are in the near term. Those are pretty much what we believe they're going to be. For the outlying ones, we rounded those up to give a looser number, because we do know that inflation enters into it. By no means should you be thinking that any of these outlying costs are based on an actual estimate or something like that.
Thank you.
Any other discussion on the motion? Let's see, we got Sherry.
So just to clarify, what we're voting on tonight is an understanding that these are the projects that need to be done and a hopeful order that we're going to do them, but not necessarily the budget perspective of them. Correct?
That was the committee's understanding.
I mean, if I were to paraphrase what I heard, Sherry, this is a planning document that's being used to inform that's aspirational, but by no means locks the committee or the administration in, but simply expresses what the inventory of needs are, how they're prioritized, what they think they'll cost, and when they think that they should be addressed. Any other questions or comments on the motion to approve the 10-year capital plan? Seeing none, let's try that again. Randy, can we call the roll?
Sure. Member Ayala?
Ayala, yes.
Member Bennett? Member Gustafson?
Yes.
Yeah. Member Gustafson?
Yes.
Member Haber?
Haber, yes.
Member Woodland? I'm sorry. Member Ember?
Ember, yes.
Member Kirschenbaum?
Kirschenbaum, yes.
Member Knowlton?
Knowlton, yes.
Member Lavoy?
Lavoy, yes.
Member Longbeliel?
Longbeliel, yes.
Member Mills?
Mills, yes.
Member Otmar?
Otmar, yes.
Member Pantos?
Pantos, yes.
Member Smith?
Smith, yes.
Member Sullivan?
Sullivan, yes.
Member Williamson,
Williamson, yes.
Member Woodland,
Woodland, yes.
Member Young,
Young, yes.
Chair Dennis.
Dennis, yes. Motion carries. So I've got 10:28, and unless a majority of you are really compelled to keep going, which you certainly can make a motion to do so, I would certainly entertain a motion to adjourn. That we would pick up these items tomorrow at the bottom half of our meeting. So a motion's been made to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
And
Member
Randy, can we call the
Ayala?
roll?
Yep, Member Ayala.
Ayala.
Member Bennett.
Bennett, yes.
Member Gustafson.
Yes.
Member Haber.
Yes.
Member Ember.
Ember, yes, and Randy, you were very quick to
I am getting quicker at it. And if I can speak correctly, it will be even better. Member Kirschenbaum.
Kirschenbaum, yes.
Member Knowlton.
Knowlton, yes.
Member Lavoy.
Lavoy, yes.
Member Longbeliel.
Longbeliel, yes.
Member Mills.
Mills, yes.
Member Otmar.
Otmar, yes.
Member Pantos.
Pantos, yes.
Member Smith.
Smith, yes.
Member Sullivan.
Sullivan, yes.
Member Williamson.
Williamson, yes.
Member Woodland.
Woodland, yes.
Member Young.
Young, yes.
Chair Dennis.
Dennis, yes. Our meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone, tonight, and we'll see you back here tomorrow. Have a good night.
Thank you.